100% focused on open world PvE content in World of Warcraft. Things like leveling, world quests, and delves. My name is Setsuko, and in this video, I want to go over the monk class talent tree with you and just kind of offer up my opinion about which talents I think are good for open world content and which ones I think maybe you can skip and everything in between. So before we get started with this, I do just kind of want to point out here, because this is a class that has a healing spec, it has a tank spec. Generally for open world content, if you want to play a tank or a healer, what we're going to try to do is maximize our offensive capabilities, because we have plenty of sustain through healing and plenty of defense through tanking to tackle that kind of content until maybe you get into some of like the high level delves potentially. So we're gonna kind of defer some of those healing and tanking abilities that we might normally pick up in favor of just getting more utility and getting more DPS. So just keep that in mind as we go through the talents here. So we're going to take a look at our starting talents for each specialization. We'll be here on the Windwalker Monk tree, but we'll flip over to Mistweaver and Brewmaster as we need to if there are special talents. And I'm going to try to give you a perspective on each talent for each of the specializations as well. So starting out here on the Windwalker Monk, we're going to have Paralysis. This is an instant cast, 45-second cooldown that incapacitates a target for 1 minute. Honestly, take it or leave it here. Obviously, we got to take it on Windwalker Monk, but you know, this is an ability that you can throw out there if you're going to pull multiple enemies and for some reason you want to incapacitate one of them so you can deal with one target and then go over to the other one. That's totally fine, but in my opinion, not super necessary. The other ability we start with for Windwalker Monk is going to be Rising Sun Kick. This is an instant cast, 10-second cooldown ability that costs 2 chi. It's going to kick upwards and deal some damage. We're going to want this on all 3 specializations. This is core for Windwalker Monk. Brewmaster can use it as well, and it's a core part of the Mistweaver Monk once you kind of get into the DPS healing style of Mistweaver Monk. And again, for Mistweaver Monk, we're just going to want to take as many offensive things as we possibly can. Moving over to the Mistweaver, they're going to start with the same talents, and so is the Brewmaster. So the last talent we have on the top row here is Soothing Mist. So this is a 8-second channeled cast ability. It will heal the target, and it will allow you to instantly cast some other heals on the target. Honestly, this is a skippable for me in open world content. Generally, you're going to be playing solo. There's other ways for you to heal yourself throughout the talent tree and within the specialization talent trees as well. And it's not very often that you're going to stop in the middle of solo open world content and Soothing Mist yourself for 8 seconds and cast other heals on yourself, because you want to be proactive about trying to defeat the things that are dealing the damage to you. So for me, this is pretty much an easy skip if you're going to be playing solo. Moving on to the second row here, we have Elusive Mist. So this reduces all damage taken by you and your target while channeling Soothing Mist. Again, if we're not picking up Soothing Mist, we can skip on this as well. And then we have Tiger's Lust. This is an instant cast, 30-second cooldown ability that basically here, it's going to give you 70% movement speed for 6 seconds. Now, the monk has a lot of mobility, a lot of movement speed. I could see this being a point that you potentially skip, but because it leads into other parts of the tree, and we do want to be able to kind of go over on this left side here without picking up Soothing Mist, I do think it's a good one to put a point into. You could skip it if you want to, but I don't really recommend it. So I would put a point into Tiger's Lust. It's just going to be a nice 70% movement speed every 30 seconds. Next, we have a choice node between Crashing Momentum and Disable. So Crashing Momentum makes it so that targets you roll through are snared by 40% for 5 seconds, and Disable is a instant cast ability that reduces the target's movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds, and that gets refreshed as you melee attack them. Honestly, I don't really care about either one of these in open world content that much. It's pretty much going to be you melee to melee against the enemy, so you could skip through this. If you were going to pick one up, then I would say pick up Crashing Momentum, because you're probably going to get more value out of that in open world content. Next, we have Fast Feet. This makes it so that Rising Sun Kick deals 70% increased damage and spinning crane kick deals 10% increased damage. That's going to be reflected in our other specializations as well. To me, this is an easy point to put in. You're going to be using Rising Sun Kick. 70% increased damage is a pretty big deal on that, so go ahead and pick this one up. Next, we have Grace of the Crane. This increases all healing taken by 4%. To me, this is a decent one to pick up. You are going to be healing yourself in various ways. Increasing that healing amount by 4%, that's a solid use of a talent, so I would pick this up on every specialization, except maybe Mistweaver if you find that the healing is pretty good. Maybe even Brewmaster if you're tanky enough. But in general, it's not a bad talent to pick up. I would definitely pick it up for Windwalker. Next, we have Bounding Agility. So this causes your roll in Chi Torpedo to move a small distance further. So any increased range on your roll in your Chi Torpedo is great, in my opinion. That's why I think we pick up Tiger's Lust, is because we want this talent here. For me, this is kind of a mandatory pickup on all three specializations just to increase the mobility you have. Next, we have Calming Presence. This reduces all damage taken by 3%. Again, another solid just baseline damage reduction. Pick it up on all specs. Here we have Wind's Reach. This increases the range of disable, or it increases the duration of crashing momentum, and it increases the snare. Again, I don't necessarily think you need to pick up either one of these, and even if you did, I don't think that you need to put a talent point here either. But if you're really into this whole mechanic, then there's no reason not to put a point here if you like it and you use it often. For me, it's a skip. Next, we have Detox. This removes all poison and disease effects from the target. In open world content, typically you're not going to run into a poison or disease so bad that you need to worry about clearing it from yourself. So for me, this is an easy one we can skip and save a talent point. On the next row, we have Vivacious Vivification. Every 10 seconds, your next Vivify becomes instant and its healing is increased by 20%. It also reduces the cost of Vivify by 75%. To me, this is pretty much a mandatory pickup on all three specializations. You're going to use Vivify to heal yourself, and being able to get that as an instant cast every 10 seconds just means that when you need the healing, you got it. Even if you're playing a Mistweaver or Brewmaster and you're not taking a whole ton of damage, you're still just going to get a free reduced cast Vivify that you can top yourself off with in between different enemies. Next, we have Jade Walk. While out of combat, your movement speed is increased by 15%. Mandatory pickup on all specs for me. Love mobility and movement speed in open world content. Next, we have Pressure Points. Paralysis, which we all get up here, now removes all enrage effects from its target. Again, easy skip. If for some reason you're running into like a Delve boss or something that has an enrage and you want that effect, you can spec into this just for that boss. But in general, we're going to be skipping this. Next, we have Spearhand Strike, instant cast, 15-second cooldown. This is our interrupt, mandatory on every single spec. You want to be able to interrupt the enemy, so pick this one up 100% every spec. Next, we have Ancient Arts, reduces the cooldown of paralysis and leg sweep. So paralysis we have here, leg sweep is going to be kind of our AoE stun. This one you can kind of take it or leave it. 2 points in, it's going to reduce the cooldown of paralysis by 15 seconds. If you're using that pretty often, go for it. And leg sweep gets reduced by 10 seconds. Leg sweep is a nice AoE stun that you can use. The cooldown reduction on that is fairly good. So for me, this is one where if you need to put 2 points in somewhere, you can come back and put them in here and you don't feel too bad. But I would also rather spend those points on something else. So next we have a choose talent, a choice talent between Chi Wave and Chi Burst. So Chi Wave makes it so that every 15 seconds, your next Rising Sun Kick or Vivify will basically bounce through different targets, either dealing damage or healing them. It bounces up to 7 times to targets within 25 yards. Chi Burst makes it so that your damaging spells and abilities have a chance to activate this ability, which lets you hurl a torrent of energy forward 40 yards and deals nature damage to enemies and heals all allies and you as well. For open world content, I vastly prefer Chi Wave. One Chi Wave is pretty automatic every 15 seconds. The next time you just do Rising Sun Kick, you're going to get a bounce of damage and healing, which is really nice. Chi Burst, on the other hand, while it does hit a lot harder and heal a lot more, it also goes 40 yards, which is a pretty long way, and you can, you can aggro some enemies that you weren't wanting to pull into what you're doing right now through that Chi Burst. So I prefer Chi Wave here, and I would definitely pick this one up. It's just free healing and damage. So to me, Chi Wave, easy pickup on all 3 specs. Next, we have Transcendence. So this is an instant cast, 10-second cooldown. It splits your body and spirit, leaves your spirit behind for 15 minutes. And then you can use a different ability, Transcendence Transfer, to swap locations with your spirit. So for me, this one is a mandatory pickup because it gets us into the middle of the tree. Whether or not you actually use this one is kind of up to you and what you like to do, but you could, leave your spirit somewhere and then go and do some exploration and then teleport back to your spirit potentially. That's kind of like the best use case for open world content as far as I'm concerned. But we're going to pick it up because we want to get into the middle of the tree here. Next, we have Energy Transfer. Successfully interrupting an enemy reduces the cooldown of paralysis and roll. To me, this is an easy skip. We're going to be interrupting all the time, but really I'm not worried about the cooldown on paralysis, and I'm not that worried about the cooldown on roll either because we're going to get some more charges and things for that anyway. So you can skip this one, but if you find yourself, killing things pretty fast and your roll ends up on cooldown, then you could grab this one for that 5-second reduction. Next, we have a choice node between Celerity and Chi Torpedo. Celerity reduces the cooldown of roll by 5 seconds and increases its maximum number of charges by 1. And then we have Chi Torpedo. This is instant cast, 2 charges, has a 20-second recharge. It moves you a long distance forward and increases your movement speed by 30% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. My preference here is Chi Torpedo, but honestly, you could pick up either one. I think picking up one of these is absolutely mandatory on all 3 specializations. I prefer the Torpedo because I like the increased distance, and then you get that additional movement speed for 10 seconds. And I find that half the time I can Chi Torpedo over to something, and I've got plenty of movement speed left at the end if I didn't quite get there. But definitely pick up one of these 2 on every single specialization. On the next row, we have a choice node between Quick-Footed and Hasty Provocation. On Quick-Footed, reduce the duration of snare effects on you by 20%. Hasty Provocation makes it so that provoked targets move towards you faster. Neither one of these, in my opinion, is super necessary in open world content, so it's an easy skip if you want to save a talent point. If I was going to pick one of these up, it would be Quick-Footed, but again, for me, that's a skip. Next, we have Ferocity of Zuen. This increases all damage by 2%. To me, easy pickup, 1.2% increased damage. We need to get down further into this tree as well, so solid pickup there for all specializations. Next, we get a choice between Ring of Peace and Song of Chi-Ji. So Ring of Peace has a 45-second cooldown. It makes a ring, and for 5 seconds, any enemies that try to come into the ring get bounced out of it. Then we have Song of Chi-Ji. This is a 1.8-second cast, so it has a cast time, 30-second cooldown, so less than Ring of Peace, and it will disorient enemies for 20 seconds. So it lasts longer, but it has a cast time. Either one of these is okay if you feel like you need the defensive. I've often found that the Ring of Peace is nice because you can just pop it on yourself and it'll push enemies out for 5 seconds, which gives you enough time to maybe cast off a heal or torpedo in a direction away from the enemies, and that's usually good enough in most cases. You might find that your build doesn't need something like this, especially if you're playing like Brewmaster where you're basically invincible. You might not need either one of these. So this is kind of up to you and your preference, your playstyle, your build. For now, I'm going to pass on it. Next, we have Spirit's Essence. Transcendent Transverse snags targets within 10 yards by 70% for 4 seconds. Easy skip for me. No need to boost Transcendence Transfer. You're not really going to be using it like that in open world content. Next, we have Tiger Tail Sweep. This increases the range of leg sweep by 4 yards. I do actually like this one. Now, the cooldown reduction can be nice as well. The range increase on this is pretty good, though, because you can hit more targets with it. So I would really put a point into either Ancient Arts or a point into Tiger Tail Sweep, whatever works better with your build. But, you know, boosting that leg sweep is pretty nice. And then we have Improved Touch of Death. So Touch of Death can now be used on targets with less than 15% health remaining, dealing 35% of your maximum health and damage. Touch of Death is essentially your execute. Depending on the spec you're playing, you may be able to get even further into Touch of Death mechanics. I like to boost Touch of Death as much as possible. Even if you're doing pretty well, you can still just delete certain targets with this ability. So putting a point in here to me is pretty solid. I would probably put a point here or into Tiger Tail Sweep to help you get down the right side of this tree, or you can put a point into both. On to the next row, we have Vigorous Expulsion. Expel Harm's healing is increased by 5%, and critical strike chance is increased as well. So Expel Harm is an ability that is going to deal damage to the enemy that's attacking you and also heal you as well. So you're going to use this ability pretty frequently. It's just an easy ability to pop. So increasing the healing and the critical strike chance is pretty nice. So I generally will pick this one up on all specializations. Next, we have a choice node between Yu'lon's Grace and Diffuse Magic. Yu'lon's Grace says that you will gain a magic absorb shield for 0.6% of your max health every 3 seconds in combat, stacking up to 6%. Diffuse Magic is a 1.5 minute cooldown ability that reduces the magic damage you take by 60% for 6 seconds and transfers active harmful effects back to the caster. To me, you can skip both of these. If you were going to pick up one of them, I would probably go with Yu'lon's Grace, just because it's a passive for you and you don't have to worry about pushing another button. You're going to have plenty of buttons to push on a monk anyway, but you could definitely skip this whole talent node. Next, right here in the middle, we have Peace and Prosperity. This reduces the cooldown of Ring of Peace, and Song of Chi-Ji's cast time is reduced. So Ring of Peace can get down to a 40-second cooldown, and we can get the Song of Chi-Ji down to a 1.3 second cast. If you pick one of these up and you think this would be convenient, fine, but you can skip both of these depending on the spec that you're playing. Next, we have Fortifying Brew. So this is a defensive ability. It's a 6-minute cooldown, which is absolutely insane for open world content. Turns your skin to stone for 15 seconds, which boosts your health and reduces the damage that you take. And you can also stack other Fortifying Brew effects onto this, particularly with the Brewmaster. So you may want to grab this if you're going to go for that particular kind of build for your Brewmaster monk. This is pretty skippable to me on the other specializations unless you choose a talent that's going to augment this, which we'll get to on the next row. So we'll talk about this again in just a minute. Our last talent on this row is Dance of the Wind. Your dodge chance is increased by 10%, and it continues to increase by 10% every 4 seconds until you dodge an attack. Just a nice, easy defensive ability. So you could pick this one up if you've got the talent points to spare. I personally do like to pick that up. Now we got a couple of points left that we need to put in to get down into the next tier. So let's go ahead. We'll grab Fortifying Brew so we can boost that one up. And there we go. All right, on to our next row. Save Them All. When your healing spells heal an ally who's below 35% maximum health, you gain additional healing. Easy skip, right? You're just going to be healing yourself primarily. So don't worry about putting a talent point in here. Next, we have Swift Art. Roll removes the snare effect once every 30 seconds. Again, to me, easy skip. We don't need this in open world content, generally speaking, unless maybe you're fighting a very specific type of enemy. But your melee, you should be right there in their face. You shouldn't really be getting snared and those sorts of things. Next, we have a choice node. So this one has Strength of Spirit. Expel Harm's healing is increased by up to 100% based on your missing health, or Expel Harm's critical healing is increased by 50%. Now, I do like to pick one of these up. So in particular, I would go here, Yu'lon's Grace, to get into this, to get Strength of Spirit, to increase the healing on Expel Harm based on my missing health. So if my health is getting lower and lower, it's going to heal me for even more. Not a necessity, but I do find it to be very useful, especially on like Windwalker Monk. A lot of times with Windwalker Monk, offense is your best defense, but when the offense is failing, having some backup heals like this are pretty nice. Whether or not you need this on Mistweaver or Brewmaster really comes down to your build and how good your healing is doing and how good your defense and stagger is doing as well. So you could put those in there. I recommend this on Windwalker Monk, and not a bad one to pick up on the other specializations as well, depending on your build. Next, we have Summon White Tiger Statue, and I believe this changes. So we have Summon Jade Serpent Statue, and then we have Summon Black Ox Statue. So this is another reason to choose either Yulon's Grace or Fortifying Brew, is to be able to get to this talent, because we do want this. So for Summon White Tiger Statue, when we invoke Zuin the White Tiger, which is an offensive ability we can use, it also spawns a White Tiger statue at your location that pulses attack damage to all enemies for 10 seconds. So really, really nice. Definitely want to pick this up on Windwalker Monk. If we look at the Mistweaver one, this is going to be an instant cast 10-second cooldown ability that summons a Jade Serpent statue at the target location. When you channel Soothing Mist, the statue will also channel Soothing Mist on your target, healing for 1% over 8 seconds. This one is skippable on Mistweaver Monk unless you are playing with someone else and you're, playing the role of the pseudo healer. Maybe you could pick it up, but you can skip this one on Mistweaver Monk. And then for Brewmaster, you have Summon Black Ox Statue, instant cast, 10-second cooldown. It summons a Black Ox statue for 15 minutes that pulses threat to all enemies within 20 yards. And if you cast Provoke on it, the statue taunts all enemies. Pick it up, okay? Pick this up on Brewmaster Monk. It's fantastic. You drop it down, it'll take the aggro off of you. If you provoke it, it'll taunt everything. This will allow you to pull a lot more enemies than you typically could, and a lot stronger enemies than you typically could. It's a very nice utility tool for the Brewmaster Monk. So as far as this talent point goes, Windwalker Monk, Brewmaster Monk, pick it up. Mistweaver Monk, you can skip it. Now we have a choice node that's going to augment Fortifying Brew. So Fortifying Brew on its own, I would not pick up for open world content. However, we've got Iron Shell Brew. This increases your maximum health by additional 10%, and your damage taken is reduced by an additional 10% while Fortifying Brew is active. This to me doesn't make it worth picking up in open world content. Then we have Expeditious Fortification, Fortifying Brew cooldown reduced by 30 seconds. That gets us to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Again, not worth picking up in my opinion. So I would skip this altogether. I would probably skip Fortifying Brew. I would just go with Yulon's Grace into the statue and into Strength of Spirit potentially here if you want to grab those nodes. However, again, on Brewmaster Monk, sometimes you want to grab that Fortifying Brew because you can bake more things into it. Our next talent point here is Celestial Determination. While your Celestial is active, you cannot be slowed below 90% normal movement speed. Again, we don't really care about this too much. That's an easy skip on all specializations. On our next row here, we have Chi Proficiency. Magical damage done is increased by 2%, and healing done is increased by 2%. We could put 2 points in to get both of those to 4%. To me, the healing increase is just nice to have. The magical damage depends on the spec you're playing, but easy 2 points to put in. So that's fine to put in on all specializations. Next, we have Healing Winds. So Transcendence Transfer immediately heals you for 10% of your maximum health. Not worried about that either. Again, we're not really going to be using it that way. Right in the middle, we have Wind Walking. Okay, and yep, it's the same for our other specs. So you and your allies within 10 yards have 4% increased movement speed. And this does stack with other effects. To me, pick that up every single specialization. It gives you 4% increased movement speed, but if you do happen to party up with someone else, it gives them that little boost as well. Next, we have Bounce Back. When a hit deals more than 12% of your maximum health, reduce all damage you take by 20% for 4 seconds. This can occur every 30 seconds. This is a nice talent point. So if for some reason you've gone into Fortifying Brew and you've got a modification here for it, and all that and you can get to this talent point, I do think it's worth taking. If you were going to do that, I would do Fortifying Brew. I'd get the cooldown reduced, and then I would go into this just so you can use that Fortifying Brew a little bit more often. But again, I don't recommend this trio in general as a pickup. And then next we have Martial Instincts. This increases your physical damage done by 2% and avoidance by 2%. We could put 2 points in to get those up to 4%. I do definitely think this is worth picking up on all 3 specializations. I would probably get there by just hitting Celestial Determination to be able to put those 2 points in. Depending on your build, depending on your specialization, and, you know, kind of what you've already picked up. Now we're getting into the bottom tier. So we have Lighter Than Air. Roll causes you to become lighter than air, allowing you to double jump to dash forward a short distance once within 5 seconds, but the cooldown of roll is increased by 2 seconds. Honestly, just play with this one and see if you like it. If you like it, get it. If you don't feel like it's valuable, skip it. Next, we have Flow of Chi. You gain a bonus effect based on your current health. Above 90%, your movement speed is increased by 5%. Between 90 and 35, your damage taken is reduced by 5%. Below 35% health, your healing is received by 10%. This is a fantastic talent, in my opinion, and I would pick it up on every single specialization. If your health is above 90%, you're probably moving. If it's between 90 and 35, you're fighting, you're getting 5% damage reduction. If it's below 35%, you're probably trying to heal. So getting that increased healing is really, really good. I think this is just a really good all-around talent for all specializations. In the middle, we have a choice node, Escape from Reality. After you use Transference Transfer, you can use it again within 10 seconds, ignoring its cooldown. And then Transcendence Link Spirit. This tethers your spirit to an ally for an hour. And when you use Transcendence Transfer, you teleport to your ally's location. Okay, so Escape from Reality, hard pass. Not worried about that at all. Transcendence Link Spirit, again, hard pass if you're playing solo. If you're playing with a friend and you think this would be pretty useful, then go ahead and pick it up. But you'll know based on your situation. In general, for this video, I'm going to say pass on this whole talent. Next, we have Fatal Touch. Touch of Death increases your damage by 5% for 30 seconds after being cast, and its cooldown is reduced by 90 seconds. Again, Touch of Death is going to be that execute ability that we have. It's going to have a 3-minute cooldown. This cuts it in half. That is really, really good. We pair that over here where we can use it with on targets that have 15% health remaining, and it deals increased damage. Very nice to have. Highly recommend this on all 3 specializations. That brings us to the last talent in the tree. We have a choice node between Rushing Reflexes and Clash. Rushing Reflexes, you can react swiftly to the presence of enemies, causing you to quickly lunge to the nearest enemy in front of you within 10 yards after you do a roll or Chi Torpedo. And then Clash is a 1-minute cooldown ability that makes you and the target charge each other, meeting halfway, and then you root everything in between. Again, to me, this is kind of like Lighter Than Air. See if you like this. My personal pickup here would be Rushing Reflexes, because you're going to be able to roll a lot, so you can roll or Chi Torpedo, get that movement speed boost, and then also you can lunge into the enemy. But you know, you might not need that. It might be overkill. You might want to put that talent somewhere else. Clash is a perfectly fine ability too, but the 1-minute cooldown on it, it's good for, in my opinion, things like tanking and repositioning enemies if that's what you want to do. But I don't feel like you'll be doing a lot of that in open world content. So if you were going to pick up one of these, to me, it would be Rushing Reflexes. But again, this is more of like a convenience talent point. Whereas you could put that into some more increased stats or cooldown reduction, etc. So really just depends on you. So those are my thoughts on the talent tree for the class talent tree for Monk, and the abilities that I think are really useful or like required for all specializations and different specializations versus the ones that I think you could skip and the ones that are kind of there in the middle. I hope this video has been helpful to you. If it has, throw a like on it. Subscribe and support the channel. We're trying to grow. Share the video with a friend that is going to be playing Monk in the War Within. And I appreciate you taking time to watch one of my videos, and I'll see you on the next one.